Okay, we're continuing with cross-price elasticity. So two goods are called complements. The quantity consumed of one good increases the quantity consumed of the other good. Two goods are called substitutes if the quantity consumed of one good decreases the quantity consumed of the other good. What I want you to do is take a moment and try to figure out on your own the cross-price elasticity. If it's negative versus if it's positive. When it's negative, it's going to indicate that it's either a complement or a substitute, one of the two. And if it's positive, it's going to indicate the other. I want you to pause this and try to figure out the logic of if the cross-price elasticity is positive, is it telling us the products are complements or substitutes? Take a moment and pause, and then we'll go through this together. Okay, I hope you paused. We're going to go through this together. So I'm going to actually just open up Microsoft Word to kind of type this out as we go. Expand this a little bit, use a bigger font so it shows up on the screen a little bit better. Okay. So if the cross-price elasticity is positive. Okay. So if the cross-price elasticity is positive, remember what the cross-price elasticity is telling us. It's the percentage change in the quantity of good X divided by the percentage change in the price of good Y. So that means if price of Y increases, quantity of X increases, right? I mean, it's positive. So they both have to move in the same direction. So if the price of Y increases, the quantity of X increases. We know that happens. So what does that tell us about the quantity of X versus the quantity of Y? Well, to figure this out, when the price of Y increases, what happens to the quantity of product Y? Well, you just have to go back and realize, oh, the law of demand, right? The price of Y increases, the quantity of Y decreases. Right? Price up, quantity down, law of demand. So this is from the law of demand. This is because the cross-price elasticity is positive. Well, so if the price of Y increases, we have quantity of X increases, quantity of Y decreases. Means these products are substitutes. Right? If the cross-price elasticity is positive, if the price of Y increases, the quantity of X increases, but the quantity of Y decreases, so the products are substitutes. Actually, you'll just see the opposite effect if the cross-price elasticity is negative. So if the cross-price elasticity is negative, well, how does this change? Well, the quantity, if the price of Y increases, the quantity of X now decreases, right? That's because the cross-price elasticity is negative. The law of demand still holds, right? Price of Y goes up, quantity of Y decreases. So now these both decrease, and the products are complements. So the products are complements for one another. If the cross-price elasticity is negative, and they're substitutes if the cross-price elasticity is positive. Now, as I've mentioned before, you could try to memorize that, but I don't advise trying to memorize anything in this class. If you got a question like this, just think through it. Just do the little exercise we just went through. Think about, what does this mean for the, how is that going to affect the quantity of X and quantity of Y? You don't need to memorize it. It's nice when you don't have to have things like this memorized. You just have to think through the process of how it's solved. Okay, we're moving on from cross-price elasticity to income elasticity now. Same general concept, but now instead of percentage change in a price, it's just the percentage change in income in the denominator. So how much does the quantity of some product X change when you have a income change? Right? Percentage change in income alters the purchase of a product. The two broad ways we categorize based on income elasticity is inferior goods versus normal goods. An inferior good is when your income increases, but you buy less of that product, right? We talked earlier about ramen noodles or generic versions of products. As you make more money, you might not buy generic versions. You might not buy as many ramen noodles, right? Those would be inferior goods. Your income goes up, your quantity of those actually falls. Most goods are thought of as normal goods, though. And a normal good even would qualify with, I only have less than and greater than, but greater than or equal to 0 qualifies for a normal good. An increase in the income will increase the consumption of any normal good. You make more money, you might spend a little bit more on your automobile, right? You might spend a little bit more on clothing or a better television, more on electronics. So those are the two broad ways to categorize things, but within normal goods, there's a lot of variation. So we separate normal goods out a little bit further into what we call necessary and luxury goods. Necessary goods, the income elasticity will be between 0 and 1. And what that's telling you is you make more money, you buy more of the product, but the percentage increase in what you buy of the product isn't matching your percentage increase in income. For example, food. Let's just think of food as a broad category. Let's say your income doubles. Are you going to spend more on food? Probably, right? You have a little bit more money. You can spend more on the food you want to buy. Are you going to spend double the amount on food? Probably not. So that would mean this is a necessary good. The percentage increase in income caused some percentage increase in food purchases, just not as much as your percentage increase in income. A luxury good, on the other hand, not only do you spend more on it, but the percentage increase in the spending on the luxury good exceeds the percentage increase in your income. So if you go from making whatever you're making in college and you get your first job, let's say you make $15,000 a year in your senior year of college, working an internship and a little bit during the school year, and you get a job for $50,000 a year right out of college. You may be a person who really likes jewelry, but when you make $15,000 a year, you only spend $100 on jewelry because it's a luxury. You can't really afford it. But when you get your job for $50,000 a year, now you spend $1,000 a year on jewelry because it's the one thing you really like. Well, if that's the case, not only did you buy more jewelry, but the percentage increase in your consumption of jewelry went up 10 times, right? You're purchasing 10 times as much jewelry with only 3 times as much income. Your income elasticity for that would be greater than 1. That's considered a luxury good. The terms here are pretty descriptive because things like jewelry, maybe vacations, things that are thought of as luxuries usually will have these income elasticities that are indeed greater than 1. Oops, sorry, here, let's move back. So separating this out, normal versus necessary. The normal goods could be necessary or luxury goods. Then you also have inferior goods. And we have an income elasticity here. Income elasticity problem, I'm sorry. Let's have take an individual who earns $50,000 per year and they buy 100 bananas. The individual gets a raise to $60,000 per year. She buys 105 bananas with $60,000 a year income. What is the income elasticity, and what can we say about the product based on the income elasticity? Go ahead and pause, work through this yourself, and then we will work through it together. Okay, I hope you paused it. We are going to work through this together, and I'm going to open up the Excel spreadsheet to work through this so that we can work through this together. Let's increase the font here quite a bit. 22. We have, so the individual earns 50,000 and they buy 100 bananas. Oops, I'm going to increase the font on all of these to 22. But when they make 60,000, they purchase 110 bananas. Right? That's the facts of the case here. So what is How do we solve the income elasticity? Well, we do use the midpoint formula. So it's Q2 minus Q1, 110 minus 100. And that's divided by Q2 plus Q1, 110 plus 100. And all of that will be divided by price 2 minus price 1, 60,000 minus 50,000 divided by 60,000 plus 50,000. Well, simplifying this a little bit, we get 10 in the numerator up here, 110 minus 100, divided by 210, and that'll all be divided by 10,000. Yeah, that's 60,000 minus 50,000 divided by 110,000. And I'm actually going to put in some parentheses around this to make sure they get this right. If you're doing this within Excel, you could just plug it in right now. If not, you can simplify. 10 over 210 is the same as 1 over 21. We can get rid of the 4 zeros here, so we have 1 over 11. So you have 1 divided by 21, all divided by 1 over 11, and your income elasticity is about 0.52. So your income elasticity in this problem is 0.52. What can we say about the product based on this income elasticity? Well, it's positive, right? That means it's a normal good. And if it's a normal good, then we have the two subcategories. One, it could be a luxury good or a necessary good. Well, because the income elasticity is between 0 and 1, it's a necessary good, right? The income went up by 20%, but the percentage of bananas purchased only went up by 5%, right? So you bought more bananas, but not at the same percentage as the income change. That is why we would say this is a necessary good. So what can we say about it? It's a normal good and a necessary good. That's what we could say. Some other concepts, price elasticity of supply. It's the same as demand. We're measuring the responsiveness now, though, of the quantity supplied when a price changes. Similar here, it's the slope of the supply curve. If you have a flat supply curve, you have a higher elasticity. Steep supply curve, it's a lower elasticity. So we don't spend much time on this in the notes, but it goes through the same logic as the the elasticity of demand. And there are other extensions where we really don't get into them. There are other extensions that we don't really get into in the principles class, but know that they're there, especially if you go on to take more coursework. One of them, you could apply this to auctions, where price is dependent on the quantity available. Another is elasticity of advertising. I have proctored upper-level marketing exams before, and often you'll see a lot of elasticity questions. So anybody here who's planning on getting into marketing, don't think that this is the only time you'll ever see elasticities. You will see this again. You'll see this likely on your marketing exams, especially in the upper-level marketing exams, because that's a big question, right? If you run a business, you'd like to know, well, if we increase our spending on advertising, how much more in sales will we get? That's a pretty crucial question. Elasticity of advertising can give you a very precise answer on that. So there's all sorts of ways to use elasticity. It's a great tool. It's a great tool. It takes a little bit of work to kind of get it figured out, but once you do, you can do a lot of good things with elasticities.